Hey guys, Dov here, back with another core unit, rather core hero, first of them I guess, for Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer, today featuring the disgusting Plague Priest, specifically on the Plague Furnace. So of course, many of you guys are all too painfully aware of what this thing can do. It does have a quote-unquote mortis effect, causes damage to combatants when it's in melee, of course. And yeah, so that automatically makes it a very competitive unit, right? Given also that it also has a caster on top with Lore of Plague, which means summons and AoE damage, to either bail itself out, support with numbers, or support with damage. Likewise, it also has Frenzy, which is not necessarily neither here nor there, but it does have okay armor-piercing anti-infantry damage. The animations are actually quite strong. And it also deals Discourage, so against a faction like the Greenskins, it's going to be an auto-include, and I would say is an auto-include in almost every Skaven build, except maybe against Dwarfs or Coast. But anyway, we've also got a couple of mortars here. This is Felcon playing in my Land of the Living tournament from this last weekend. Queek Headtaker here, there was a prize for the most wins with Queek, so we've got him plus an assassin, bunch of Rat Ogres, Clan Rat Spears defending the back line, and these Skaven slaves up front already getting involved with the Durkit Squigs, eating the charge very nicely. The Rat Ogres then able to respond, and all the meanwhile, these mortars are pouring in fires. So the Plague Priest right now activating into the front line to go help deal with those Savage Orcs, and especially like the archers and stuff. But Savage Orcs already taking a lot of damage here. Here comes the Foot of Gork. It looks like it's mostly going to miss, and I'm not 100% sure. It looks like it probably primarily hit chaff units there, which is not necessarily the best use of that. You can see that Discourage effect comes in along with the Billowing Death, and the DPS from the mortars here is going to lead to a lot of those units just being routed off very quickly, and even with quite a bit of HP left. You can see the Light Cavalry, the Goblin Wolf Riders have been trying to disrupt, but largely getting routed off by the Clan Rat Spears, and the support there, Felcon, able to keep his Poison Wind Mortars secure. They are another core unit for the Skaven I'll be talking about on a different occasion. But today we're focusing on the Plague Priest. The Night Goblins, of course, Unbreakable Regiment of Renowned Night Goblins. That Discourage won't matter too much. But the Drain certainly helps, especially against unbreakable units, right? Because they will fight to the bitter end, so you want, obviously, as much damage on them as you can. And yeah, the Plague Priest as well, 90 armor and quite a bit of HP makes it pretty tanky overall. I mean, it has, what, like 4,000, a little bit more than 4,000 HP base. Really nice cast of the Fanatics, though, from the 8-Peak Loons. They're kind of finishing blow. They're going to cut through here, do a lot of damage to some of these chaff units. But I mean, the balance power already not looking great for the Greenskins, as their leadership is just faltering very quickly, and the Greenskins player here doing his best to try and take out the mortars, but as we saw, if you watch the tournament live in the semi-final, it can be very tough to take down those mortars. Grom the Paunch leading the way for the Greenskins, definitely a solid pick in this matchup. He's going to turn about and come back in, try and get I don't know, I guess he's cycle charging this Plague Priest or what? I'm not sure exactly, but Bob's going to get ganged up on here by Queek, who's been doing a good job. I think they assassinated the caster already. Nope, he's still back there. But putting that Trophy Heads, Rival Hide Talisman rather, debuffing everyone. It looks like the Trophy Heads and Assassin's Trophies stacking on Bob to put him at 0 stats for both melee attack and defense, and then Queek and the Assassin come in and just absolutely break his bones. Queek, I'm planning on doing an Underrated Lord video about him. I was hoping that these replays would be the ones where I would at least get some replays from the tournament that I could use for that, but it turns out the couple replays I got from Felcon, this one, which is relatively quick, and we've got one more up against Kafka's Empire, were just such a good showcase of the Plague Priest. I mean, this one, the mortars especially as well, but Plague Priest, 85 kills, led to that massive break over on this side. The summons, of course, are a constant threat as well, so Furnace definitely paying for itself here, absolutely. And as far as the Greenskins build goes, pretty solid. This much Goblin Wolf Riders, I'm not sure about. You could probably come in and trade these out, like maybe 3 of them out for a couple of pump wagons, and if you are going to bring Wolf Rider archers, Wolf Riders, especially against the Skaven, I do think it's worth it to bring the Moon Howlers, because they cause fear. They can rout some Skaven units more easily, and they're really good for chasing Skaven units off the field, because they'll keep, with that fear debuff up, they're much more likely to stay below the threshold where they won't rally and come back, right? So definitely pretty solid besides that overall. I mean, obviously Grand the Paunch. Interesting to see no Stone Trolls, though. Definitely super solid in this matchup. For Falcon, of course, I mean, as I was saying throughout, Plague Priest did some heavy lifting. Great protection of the backline, too, from the Rat Ogres and the Hell Pit. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to the next replay. Back again, up against the Empire, as promised, and it's basically the same build from Falcon, more or less. In fact, I think it's exactly the same build. Yeah, and obviously on the Empire side, Volkmar, the auto meta pick in this matchup, just so strong here. A bunch of archers, a ton of state troops and flagellants, 4 Empire Knights for cavalry. And an Amber Wizard for the caster. He's got Manticore summons, obviously, and Flock of Doom. Definitely very solid. Mortar's going to open up right off the bat and start to damage these Empire Knights. And immediately, one thing becomes clear to me with this Empire build is that he's not prepared for Doom Wheels or, more importantly, Plague Furnaces. I don't know if he really thought of them while creating this build, Kafka, because he really doesn't have answers whatsoever. Like, in theory, the Manticore, if it's supporting other single entities, can do some pretty good damage to the Plague Priest, but given that you've only got the summon, it's going to be up for a limited amount of time, and there's no other real kind of single entities. I mean, I guess if Volkmar goes full bumper cars, but given the Hell Pits here as well, I mean, Manticore's just going to have a hard time in general, right? So, the Empire Knights don't really have good enough damage, and the Archers don't really have good enough damage to deal with the Plague Priest. Other than that, this Empire build is pretty solid. We're going to zoom in close as the Flagellants run in. As I mentioned with the 8-peak Loons, that drain damage is really good against unbreakable units. One of the best ways of dealing with them, probably. Archers do get some fire into the back line. It looks like they're maybe going after the Poison Wind Mortars. I'm not 100% sure, but the Poison Wind Mortar's definitely going to respond very well there. Empire Knights get a nice charge on these Rat Ogres. That's going to do quite a bit of damage to them. Rat Ogres over here, though, pulling back, trying to screen out through the Clan Rat Spears to get rid of those Empire Knights. Over here, Volkmar's going to dive in, and as mentioned, he's trying to support the Feral Manticore. It's going after the Hell Pit instead, it looks like, or maybe he's trying to get back and get at those Poison Wind Mortars, but here the Grinders are going to come in. Queek and the Assassin, once again, running into debuff Volkmar. Empire Knights come in for a timely charge to screen him out, so he's not going to take too much damage here. And as Queek and the Assassin kind of run in, at least Queek is going to get blocked up. The Assassin will be able to get through momentarily, but all this while as well, this Plague Priest is, I think it's technically engaged in melee. Let's see. I believe it does look like, no, actually it's not. So it's not currently draining that big blob, but look at this. Really nice Plague Breath there. And I mean, that's the thing about the Plague Furnace, is not only is a Mortis engine, basically, right? But tankier. It doesn't have the healing of a Mortis engine, but has way more armor, and I'd have to compare the HP. I think it has more HP as well, but more importantly, the fact that it has a very strong caster on the back. Oh man, it's so good. I mean, the Mortis engine, I think, does provide like a Winds of Magic benefit as well, so it's an interesting comparison. I don't know that either of them are necessarily better than the other one. They just sort of offer different upsides, but the armor and animations on the Plague Priest Furnace are ridiculous. I mean, the animations in particular make it actually really hard to kill in certain situations, like especially if you just have infantry only. And here, with this wide infantry build, it's kind of like a dream scenario for this Plague Priest. Kafka's given it his best, though, as he's been able to deal quite a bit of damage. You can see the Skaven infantry largely starting to run out of steam. Poison Wind Mortars have taken some damage, but it's not enough to finish them off. They've both still got 7 unit models. And a beautiful situation here where we get a nice drain, a nice double Plague Breath straight through. So that Plague Priest Furnace, even if it doesn't, again, even if it's not in melee draining, it can still generate value in a multitude of other ways, which is why it's just such a strong include in any Skaven army, pretty much. And without the Plague Furnace specifically, I mean, you might still see the Plague Priest on foot against, like I mentioned, Dwarfs and Toast. Although Dwarfs, you can kind of do whatever you want in that matchup, to be honest. It's pretty cursed for the Dwarfs. Skaven, that's probably one of their easiest matchups, I would say. But this is one that could potentially be tough, and the Plague Furnace, the Empire does have the missiles to deal with it and the anti-large tools, but it just depends on the player if they prepare for it or not, and also how you support it, right? And with Velkon's build here, I mean, between the Grinders, Queek and the Assassin also constitute like a pretty strong little melee hit squad, and got, yeah, the Grinders, the Mortars to deal with heavy cavalry, and likewise the Rat Ogres to screen and everything. He's just got all the tools he needs to try and keep the Plague Priest safe for the most part. It's definitely not invincible or unbeatable, but it's powerful enough that it's turned a super weapon. And I said core unit at the beginning. I may actually end up changing the title to super weapon, because this thing does fall into that classification in tournament rules, which means you can only take one. So double Plague Furnace is actually banned in competitive play. You might occasionally run into it on ladder. It is pretty cheesy, but it is explicitly banned in competitive, and for good reason. These things are insanely powerful and very hard to kill if you don't have the right tools. Even if you do have the right tools, if the player's on top of their micro, it still can be very, very hard to finish them off. So at this point, the balance of power taking a pretty significant dive against the Empire. I mean, obviously, Volkmar is still a massive danger here, but currently getting shredded by Queek and the Assassin. Double debuffs once again, along with the Hell Pit Abomination. Just zero melee defense on Volkmar, zero melee attack, and he is getting absolutely wrecked. As he gets more and more wrecked, it triggers critical army losses. Volkmar himself, of course, and the various other unbreakable units keep fighting. I guess it's literally just the Sons of Sigmar left. And that'll end it, but 191 kills, almost 200 there for the Plague Priest. I'm sure if he could get chevrons, he'd have got a ton there. And also, let's give credit to the Rat Ogre that's pulling the chain on the back. And I don't know, is there a second dude standing on there, I think? Or is it just the Plague Priest? I can't remember. But anyway, Furnace, absolute menace in the night. Hell Pit Abomination as well, sort of combining with it. They are pretty strong in tandem. I'm not the biggest fan of the Hell Pit in general, because it's kind of slow, unresponsive, and it can end up just dying, which is pretty bad. But certainly with the Plague Priest and with these other supporting tools, it's more viable, definitely. Yeah, as for the Empire build, kind of talked about it already. I think you want to go with heavier heavy cavalry. Yeah, that makes sense. Heavier heavy cavalry focus here. I mean, given that you want to try and pull the Rat Ogres away from the formation, and just in general, shutting down Poison Wind Mortars can be tough, but the more mobility you have, the more chances you have of doing that, right? Now, granted, Velkon did have a lot of protection, but in terms of tools you can bring to take down the Plague Priest, I mean, obviously, Empire has a lot of armor-piercing missiles. You can bring armor debuffs as well, or, you know, bring a unit of Demigryph Knights, like even just one unit of Demigryph Knights in the right situation can be enough to take down the Plague Priest. But just in general, let's go ahead and finish things up. It's a unit that you always, when you're fighting against Skaven, you need to always double check before you start the game while you're making your build and think to yourself, do I have the tools to take down a Plague Priest? Armor-piercing missiles or regular missiles and armor debuffs, strong anti-large high mass units, and that's very important, the high mass, in order to either bog it down or high speed to keep up. But the spell selection here is just excellent. The Plague Monk summon can be very good in niche situations if you find yourself against some elite infantry, or like you want to summon in the back line and have them chase some skirmishers or something, especially elite skirmishers, given that Plague Monks, you know, they have decent speed and physical resistance and so on. Obviously, Vermintide is what it is. Very strong summon of just a regular low-tier unit, but the fact that you can spam it. Wither, of course, pretty underrated spell, to be honest. You don't see it a ton anymore, but minus 60 armor in a big old area of effect for 50 seconds can be absolutely massive, especially if you're running a lot of non-AP units. Like if you have a strong line of, let's say, I don't know, a Storm Vermin Sword and Shield in some matchups, actually pretty solid. If you come up against armored units, then you can use this to make them hit quite a bit harder, or even something like regular Plague Monks. It used to be way back in the day when Total War Warhammer 2 first came out, my preferred strategy against like White Lions and Saurus, and most units in general actually, most infantry, was Plague Monks plus Wither, of course. You've also got Blessed with Filth, super strong, imbues poison, and the Pestilent Breath we saw used to great work there. And keep in mind as well that you've got one Costs no winds of magic. It does have a miscast chance, so it can damage you, and it also has more limited range, but you have one bound to the Plague Furnace as well, right? So I believe, does the Plague Furnace actually give him magic resistance too? Yeah, I must have missed that. But magic resistance of 25% is not insignificant. So then magic damage units, which are reasonably prevalent against the Skaven, given that they're good against, you know, all the Plague Monk units, and also the, you know, Clan Eshin units generally have physical resistance also. It's not unheard of, so definitely nice to have that little bit of magic resistance. We all learned something new today. I actually didn't realize that they had some, so yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload, you'll get notifications. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.